Hi, I'm Katie Stamps. I'm the Preservation Planner for the City of Huntsville, and May is Historic Preservation Month. Throughout this month, we've been celebrating People Saving Places, HSV, by highlighting young advocates in our community that do the work of historic preservation. And today I am with Dr. SueAnne Griffith, who is the creator and host of Lily Flagg Signal podcast, as well as a historic homeowner. So she has knowledge about Huntsville history from a lot of different perspectives. And Dr. Griffith, I'm so excited that you're here with us today, and we're going to be talking a little bit about what you do within the world of history so that people can learn more about the different opportunities that folks can have if they're interested in getting into the field of preservation and history, and then specifically Huntsville history. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got interested in preservation and history.
Well, one of my earliest childhood memories, just in general, not even just history specific, is my grandfather driving me around, specifically Twickenham, which conveniently we're in Twickenham. That is a coincidence. I didn't mention that before the interview, we just happened to be here. But driving around Twickenham, just looking at old houses. And I was kindergarten, first grade age. And so I just always loved old buildings, which I think is why I now live in one. But just kind of wondering then, well, who used to live here? Why did they set the city up this way? And just kind of grew from there. Went on walking tours when I was really little, which is a lot of fun anyway, but when you're a little kid, just kind of imagining all of the different things, and then as an adult you grow up and you start researching it and you realize, oh, it really was as cool as I thought it was going to be. So that's kind of, I guess, the tie-in for history in general and specifically places.
Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about your podcast, because it is centered around Huntsville history. So how did that start?
Well, I was doing a lot of the just research into different stories I'd heard, some on walking tours, some in books. And the more I read, the more I was like, oh, I want to make these more accessible if you can just want to listen to them online or just want to read a transcript as opposed to having to be at a place. Because there's a lot of value in seeing the places in person, but sometimes you just want to throw your headphones on. And that was kind of what started it. I made a few episodes, kind of thinking maybe like 4 or 5 people would listen. And I have like a few hundred a week listen now, which is in itself wild to me, just how many people kind of care, which I love that it's kind of catching on. But that was kind of why that started, was just making it more accessible through kind of non-traditional means for learning history.
Absolutely, and I think that's so great to know that you can get into history from that angle. It's something different, not, to have a podcast here in Huntsville about Huntsville history is really unique. So I want people to know that that's an option, because I listen to podcasts daily. So knowing that I can learn about Huntsville history while I'm going to the grocery store, going on a walk, that's really nice. Thanks. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how, I know with your podcast you're very knowledgeable about Huntsville history, and so because May is Preservation Month, how do you see Preservation Month? Why is it important for us to celebrate that here?
I think it's one of those things where the more you see something, the more you'll be interested in it, because it's one thing to have a sign saying this used to be a cool old building, or so-and-so used to live here, but now it's a parking lot. And I realize that happens as towns develop, but it's also really nice to be able to say this is what it looked like 100 years ago when this happened, or this is the structure they built, say, for the Huntsville Times, for this newspaper that lasted over a century, and being able to actually have that building there to look at just kind of adds another layer of understanding where the city's been, and then therefore kind of where we're going.
Yeah, kind of like a special time to just bring attention to places that we may be driving by every day, and I feel like I learn something new every year we do Preservation Month, so that part's really cool to share that with the community too, because not everybody is as knowledgeable as you are about local history, so it's an opportunity for folks like us to share that with the community.
And I've really loved seeing all of the different the events as well, and just people getting together and going like, oh hey, I never realized so-and-so lived over there, or that like that I didn't know that building even existed, and like that kind of thing. And so yeah, like I said, highlighting it's been really nice, and making sure those things stay there so 10 years from now people can do that same thing and go, oh hey, that building's still here.
Yeah. So with the podcast, obviously folks can go there and listen to that, your episodes on Huntsville history. So I know you've got a lot of interesting stories that probably a lot of us maybe aren't familiar with. So do you have any stories or places that you think we need to bring more attention to and you'd love for people to know about?
So I'd say 2 that come to mind immediately. I realize we're in a neighborhood and I'm about to name 2 that are not houses. One is Glenwood Cemetery, which is off of Clinton if you go a little bit west of downtown. And that was Huntsville's historic black cemetery, founded 1870. And a lot of community leaders are buried there. Binford, who was an educator. We've got some various aldermen, including Daniel Brandon. And there's a list when you walk in of some of the more well-known people there. But that, I think, since it's more off the beaten path, a lot of people don't realize that cemetery's there, and cemeteries are historic sites as well. And it's where you'll find a lot of monuments to people. My other place, this is downtown building that I really love, is the Times building. back when Huntsville had their like early skyscrapers. There was the Russell Erskine, which I also love, and then the Hutchins Building and the Times Building, and just so many stories about the Times Building in particular, because that's people were getting their news from that building. The man who started the Huntsville Times was wild. I did an episode just on him. He was an absolutely bonkers human being, and I think of him every time I go by that building. But also architecturally, it's so unique.
I love that. And again, I keep on pointing back to the podcast because these are stories that I know of Glenwood, but like I don't know the history of the Times Building. I know where it is, but so I think that's a really great opportunity for people to go back and learn more about these stories and the people and places that are important. So to close this out, do you have any advice or recommendations that you give for someone who is interested in getting into the world of history preservation?
I would say, first and foremost, don't be intimidated if you don't have like a history degree or, I've not been doing this for 20 years. Do I deserve to be here? Like, yes, if you have an interest, like a passion for it, that's what I think is most important. I mean, obviously getting an education, getting training, those are all important. But if you're just a casual observer that wants to learn things, tell your friends a fun fact, like that counts, that's important too. Because if you have a lot of people who care about a place, that's going to be more important than just two experts if nobody else knows anything about it. Yeah. I think the spreading of information is important.
And I think that's such a great point to hit on. And just I work with a lot of history groups here in town. There is so much work to be done as far as stories to be told, to places to be documented. So it will never be finished, and as things get older, that work will continue. So it's important for people to get involved, and like you said, you don't have to have a doctorate in history to be able to participate in that. There's lots of volunteer organizations. I know you work with the Huntsville Madison County Historical Society, correct? So that's an organization. Historic Huntsville Foundation is a nonprofit. So we do have groups that folks can get involved with if they are interested in learning more about history.
Right, and say my doctorate isn't history, and I just show up for things. Yeah, so I would say that's definitely just show up for things. I think is my main, if I had to boil it down into a few words, show up for things.
Show up, be there. That's why I love that. And that's how I got started. And volunteering, you never know where that will lead. And I think just having a passion for the subject, whatever that may be, is really important. I think you embody that. You have such a passion. So, I mean, and you get me excited about learning about history too. So I appreciate you joining us today. So I want to thank Dr. Griffith for joining us for our Preservation Month interview with People Saving Places HSV. We're so excited to be able to share stories about people in your community that are doing the work of preservation and history. And we hope that you follow along with us on Facebook and on Instagram at Huntsville Preservation. Thank you so much.